Welcome to another edition of the Giants Training Camp Report right here on Giants.com. My name is John Schmelk, and joining us today is the beat reporter for WFAN and, of course, a contributor to Giants.com and all things New York Giants, Paul Dottino. Paul, how you doing?
Always good to be with you, John.
And a face at practice today that I know a lot of Giant fans and the Giants coaching staff and his teammates have all been dying to see for a long time, O.C. Umenyiora.
The Tour de O.C. is finally over. He's off the bike, folks. O.C. Umenyiora back out there from scrimmage, taking a little 7-on-7s, taking a little 11-on-11s. This guy is ready to play, and Tom Coughlin is loving every second of it.
He's back on the field, but Paul, one guy that was able to take advantage of his absence was Jason Pierre-Paul, a first-round pick last year. He's got a lot of playing time in practice and in the first preseason game. And he's learned a lot from O.C. He's learned a lot from the veterans. Let's hear from the Giants' second-year defensive end.
He's one of our top defensive pass rusher. He gets to the ball quickly. And I'm still learning how to try to get around the corner and work my footwork out. And he's going to teach me all that. So as Tuck, Kiwanuka, all the defensive players. So I'm just going to learn from them.
And, Paul, you had Jason Pierre-Paul's 2 sacks in the game on Saturday night at Carolina. He was a force to be reckoned with.
He was ferocious, John. You know, I was on the sideline with the radio crew, so I got to look at him up close and personal. JPP is playing with incredible speed right now. This is a guy who in his second year feels a little bit more comfortable, a little bit more confident in what he's doing. He says that O.C., even though he hasn't been practicing, has showed him some things about using his footwork off the edge. What I loved about the second sack that JPP had the other night in Carolina was that he didn't give up on the play. Now, he was not the first one to pursue.
It was an effort sack.
But when the quarterback was flushed and there was a lot of coverage downfield, O.C. kept that motor in high gear, and he wound up gobbling up the quarterback. That's exactly what the Giants want to see.
And while JPP, Paul, was probably the star and the high point for the Giants in their first preseason game, maybe one of the points, not so good, was the play of the starting offensive line. Of course, it's a revamped line this year. David Deal's at guard. Will Beatty's at a tackle. And the newest member is David Boss, the center. Eli Manning talked about working with Boss and maybe the lack of communication on the line on Saturday night.
A week of practice, and so obviously a lot thrown at them, put in a whole new offense where most of the guys playing on that offensive line have been here 6 to 7 years. So and we've kind of grown as a unit, put in more calls, more checks, put a lot of stuff on the offensive line, the quarterback to communicate. So a lot of it's on a you can get a lot of it in practice, but these preseason games are very important because things come up that maybe you haven't talked about, or maybe it hadn't come up into practice, and so lots going to happen, a lot of things going, but hey, no fumbled snaps, no miscommunications between us, and so so he'll get better every practice, every game, just get more comfortable with what's going on.
And everything wasn't perfect on the offensive line, as you just heard Eli refer to. David Boss had some issues. You saw it on the sideline, Paul. There was miscommunication. There was a little bit of anger as well, but a lot of guys talking to each other, trying to figure things out.
Well, John, we knew the Panthers were going to be a heavy rush team because that's what Ron Rivera wanted to do in his first year with the team. And so what you saw were a lot of lanes, open lanes, as defenders were penetrating through that offensive line. To me, that's all about MEs and communication, because physically we know the Giants have good offensive linemen that can physically get it done, but they just had too many missed assignments. At one point, Boss came over to the sideline and slammed his helmet after a series against the aluminum bench in frustration, realizing that things were just not going as smoothly as he would like. I would suspect over the course of the next month or so, we'll see things improve.
Are you sure he didn't just see you on the sidelines or was kind of mad about that?
Well, I'd like to think I have a better take on that with people and that they like me a little bit more than that.
At least it didn't hit you, Paul. That's a good step in the right direction.
D'Angelo Williams almost did, though.
Too bad he didn't. One bright point for the Giants offense had to be wide receiver Dominic Hickson. He worked mostly with the second teamers. He worked well with Sage Rosenfels, and he spoke to the media today about how tough it was coming back from that torn ACL last season.
Probably just the mental part, not looking at the big picture, taking it one day at a time, and literally reteaching everything. I don't think people really understand that when you have knee surgery that you lose all your muscle in your quad and calf, so you have to build all that up. Literally start walking, start jogging and running. But, it takes, literally, 6-7 months before you start doing all that.
And Paul, I think it's fair to say Dominic Hickson is back. He looked fast, he looked quick, he caught pretty much every ball that came to him. And right now, to me, he's the leading candidate for that third wide receiver spot.
I don't think there's any question about it, John. And I think when you look at Dominic Hickson, you have to understand the impact that Amani Toomer had on him. Toomer came back from 2 very serious knee injuries to have an incredibly productive career, the most prolific receiver in Giants history, and Hickson looked up to him. You remember in the old stadium, he lockered next to Toomer.
Yep.
And that was a real big deal because Hicks absorbed everything out of Toomer like a sponge. To this day, he still talks about how much Amani has helped him through this entire process. Toomer went out to Akron when Hickson was rehabbing his knee injury and even gave him some personal one-on-one assistance. Couldn't be happier for the guy. Hickson's a good man to have on his team.
And a class guy, just like Amani Toomer was as well. One scary part of the game, finally, Paul, on Saturday night was the injury to Lawrence Tynes. It was a blocked field goal. It looked like his lower leg got rolled a little bit. Luckily, just a thigh bruise. How serious is this injury? How worried should we be about Lawrence Tynes?
Well, Tynes had the MRI yesterday, said it came through much better than they originally thought. When he left the locker room the other day, after talking to the writers, he was on crutches. And all the writers saw that and figured, oh boy, this is a problem. They're not going to have Lawrence Tynes for a while. Turns out today he comes out to talk to the media, hobbling just a tad, but says, hey, maybe there's a chance I'll kick on Wednesday or Thursday. And in his mind, he's thinking there's also a very good chance he'll kick on Monday night against Chicago in the preseason home opener. Now, whether or not the Giants bring in another kicker, you got Dodge and Weatherford. They can handle some of the kicks during practice for the next couple of days. But Tom Coughlin did say they might want to look at somebody just for a few days. They don't want to take any chances with these guys.
The good news, though, Lawrence Tynes long-term should be okay. He hopes to play in the game on Monday against the Bears.
Yeah, if all things go well.
Paul, we appreciate the time as always. Thanks a lot.
Always good to be with you, John.
And that's all the time we have for the training camp report right here on Giants.com. For Paul Dottino, I'm John Schmelk. Of course, follow the Giants on Twitter @Giants and be a fan of theirs on Facebook at facebook.com/New York Giants. We'll see you next time right here on Giants.com.